Okay. Emily, you can see the screen okay?
I can see it.
All right. Well, good. Well, um, first thing that I should say is that I've sat in a lot of online meetings and presentations. Um, I think we all have over the last 3 or 4 years. The best ones are the ones where someone or a group of folks are unmuting to ask questions and keep it kind of interactive. It's certainly helpful to me, and I think helpful for the overall experience. So please hop on, please ask questions. Um, if I don't know the answer, then I'll challenge myself to find out and publish that through Emily and her team over at CareWork. So we have an hour, so I'll kind of jump in. The topic that I offered to speak on is about change management, and I think it's an important topic. Certainly coming out of COVID, we as agency owners had to figure out how to adapt. What are the tools that we need? I think as entrepreneurs, we're always looking at ways to improve. And my background is in process improvement. I started my career in 1993 at Intel. I spent the majority of that time as a continuous improvement engineer, and change is tough. And change is tough in the semiconductor industry, the healthcare industry. There's really not an industry that as individuals and team members that we are all always fired up about a change. And so I'll share with you some insights on. Let's see, how does that? All right, just bear with me while I figure out how to navigate. There we go. That worked. Um, so who is this audience really, this presentation really geared for? Well, agency owners. So if you're an agency owner, you're in the right spot. If you're an administrator at an agency, you're in the right spot. If you play a key role in your office, you're in the right spot. If you're a change control engineer or change management engineer, what do I hope that you learn today is maybe some basic questions around why would we change to begin with? Um, we're a proud industry that likes it. I would say most of us would characterize the start of our industry, in the 90s, and um, and some of us started in the 2000s and 10s, and some of us started in the last 4 or 5 years. But most of us would say whenever it was that we started, we really liked it that way. We wish it was still that way in a lot of ways. Um, but the world is evolving and changing. So why is it that we want to even change to begin with? And as an in-home care agency, um, what are the types of changes that we typically focus on? And so I'll talk a little bit about that today. And one of the things that we at Home Matters have really leveraged is, how do you embrace technology to address the changes that you're talking about and the changes that you want to focus on. And then I'll spend a very short period of time just on the concept of change management, some of the principles behind making changes. And then how would you at your office measure your success? And then how do you leverage that success out in the field? Ultimately, we make changes because we want to be better, and we want that improvement to translate to better retention or better customer service or better margin or better top line revenue. Um, Before I go any further, I'll open up and ask if there were any specific things that anyone who opted into this breakout session that you're hoping that I'll cover. And if I am already, I'll tell you. And if I'm not, then I'll look for ways to maybe incorporate that into our talk. I'll start unmuting people. Trust me, I will start unmuting people. I can only see 4 people on my monitor, so I can tell you who's at risk. Carlos is at risk, okay, because I can see Carlos. Kathy R is at risk, okay. Actually, those are the only 2 at risk because Emily, I wouldn't unmute her. She's not a home care person.
Well, Tina in the chat has one, and she says improving morale and dysfunction within the office.
Okay. Let me write that down. That was a good one.
Yeah.
I forgot about the chat, and it's hard for me to see the chat while I'm doing this.
That's why I'm here to help you.
All right. So who was that, Emily?
That was from Tina Carano.
Okay.
And then
what was
it
morale?
was improving morale and dysfunction within the office.
Okay. Morale and
Matt Gustafson said, how do you properly budget adding employees with growth? These are great questions, guys. I will keep sending them to Clayton. So you go ahead and feel free to keep adding them in the chat.
Good. We didn't prep this way, Emily, but you're a very good wing woman. That'll be helpful.
Of course.
All right. So morale and budget for adding employees. I can tell you at first blush, morale is one we can really easily incorporate into this conversation. Budget and adding on might take me a minute to see where in this presentation it makes the most sense to apply some of those formulas around if the change you're trying to make is a better top line or better margin. But I'll do my best, Matt. If I don't adequately address it, we only have an hour. My contact information, Emily, I think is a part of the agenda. Anyone can call me, email me, Slack me, WhatsApp me, IG me, if that's a thing. I don't know if that is. You can find me. You can drive to my office if you're in the greater Beaverton area, and we'll just chat up about those things. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
We have one more question as well that got added.
Okay, go ahead, Emily.
From Deb M, we have, how do you balance rising staff wages with costs? And Catherine, I will get you Clayton's last name and email address. Would you be okay if I drop it in the chat, Clayton?
Oh yeah. Drop that.
Great. I will do that.
All right, good question. That one we can definitely incorporate into change management. And so that one I'm super comfortable with, and I won't give up on Matt G. All right. Well, first I'll introduce myself. That's me in the middle. Outside of today, my typical fit does include a black t-shirt. Somebody once told me it made me look slimmer, so I've pretty much only wore black t-shirts since that moment. That's my wife, Christina. Her and I started this business in 2007. Our oldest daughter, Jessica, sitting next to me in red, and then we have 2 teenage daughters and 3 grandchildren. So that's my family. You'll notice that I live, not only do I work in a female-centric industry, when I go home, I am in a female-centric home environment. I'm quite adept and comfortable in this setting. This is also my family. I think it's what we love most about our industry is that the work we do is so personal, uh, is so impactful, that we spend a lot of time together. And this group here is the team that leads our Beaverton office, from our administrator, executive director, to nursing team, client services, scheduling, business development. I spent a lot of time with this part of my family. This is who I am and who our organization is. I founded Home Matters Caregiving in 2007. I mentioned that I was from an engineering background. And so I founded the company really with two people that would guide me, a registered nurse and an occupational therapist. We are private duty home care, lest you get confused that we're home health. We're not. But I really did want to be guided by clinical professionals that could teach me about the aging process. And then, as all of you quickly learned, for those that were like me from outside of this industry, the secret is not really serving Mildred and Walter. The real secret to our industry is serving the caregiving community. And I didn't know that in 2007. And it took me actually a while to learn that as an owner. The core values of our company are really nurse guided care. And given my background and commitment to continuous improvement, and certainly someone comfortable with change, how do we leverage that to improve client care outcomes? We're award winning. I share that with you. One, because I'm super proud of the efforts and the results of the team here in Beaverton. 7 times we were provider of choice for those that utilize Home Care Pulse. You know what that means. That's an OSAT score of 8.75 or greater. We've been greater than 8.9 many times, but we were provider of choice 7 times. For those that are paying close attention, you will see that is over an 8-year period, which means one of those years we were not provider of choice, sadly. The last 5 years, we have been employer of choice, 5 consecutive years. I mentioned it took me a little while to figure out this caregiver piece, but when we really did, and we really began focusing on the caregiver as our customer, we saw that our employer of choice scores began to grow, and around 2018 is when we began to really focus on our caregiver as our customer. The last 2 years, A Place for Mom, we awarded their best in senior living, and our little community here in Beaverton rated us the best in in-home care category. We launched a franchise system in 2020 based on these principles, and our 15th office is going live here in the next few weeks. That's our office there. Home Matters Caregiving. You can see we're a well-reviewed company. Anyone who wants to ping me about Google reviews, I'm a huge believer that our market has changed forever, and your online presence matters more today than it did in February of 2020. That's where consumers and families are going to see if you're the right organization. We're the most reviewed agency in the state of Oregon. Anyone from Oregon on this call? I was going to tell them I have more reviews than you, but okay, we won't. I guess that doesn't matter. We're 4.9 Google rating. Why is that important? Because we're not a 5.0. Okay, so it means that somewhere in there, not only is someone said that Clay should be serving coffee and not seniors. The truth is we're in an imperfect business. We're in an imperfect industry. Think about all of the moving parts in our business. Our clients' changes of condition always. Our caregivers needs change. Their geography changes. The shifts they're available changes. Their their home life changes. Um, you take two massive parts of your business that are always moving. Well, you're going to make mistakes, and if you're a person like I am, and if you're an organization that believes in continuous improvement, well, then by definition you accept that you are going to make mistakes, and that continuous improvement, the very basic principle of it is that you're not as good at something that you want to be better at. And so Kimberly says that my caregiver never showed up on time. That's a problem. She said that my caregiver sat on her iPhone all day watching videos with ear pods in. I can promise you that's not part of our training, but yet that happened. Worse off, Kimberly says that she spoke to us a couple of times and we didn't fix it. That she would not recommend us. She brought in another agency, sadly, who was transitioned with her dad for his activities, and he was transitioning to hospice. This was a client that I was actually personally very close to. So this was a tough day. I share this with all of you because because the truth is this is also who Home Matters Caregiving is. This is also who I am as an agency owner. Um, we charged them for time that the caregiver wasn't there. I can assure you I corrected that. Um, Now she had a great caregiver that whose English was her primary language. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to debate that part with Kimberly. Now, one thing I noticed when I was putting this slide together is I actually misspelled Kimberly's name when I responded to her. So probably that might have also been an irritation. But what I said to Kimberly, and for any of us that are managing and monitoring Google reviews, number one, this is a public forum. And so we have to respond to these things. And of course, I responded to Kimberly. And by the way, if you're paying attention, this wasn't 9 years ago, and I'm a lot better now. This wasn't back in 2008, and we fixed all these things. This was 9 months ago. So we're not perfect. And I shared with Kimberly how disappointing this is, that we did not fulfill our obligations to her and her dad. And her dad, I certainly thought a lot of her dad. So I shared with you all the best parts of who we are, and I shared with you a little bit of where we have opportunities to improve. So um, maybe if I could open up, I'm an idea guy, and maybe some of you are idea people. How many of us have had a big idea that we wanted to bring to our office? And maybe you could share in the chat maybe one or two of those ideas, because I'd love to have some context to kind of like what I'm thinking versus what you're thinking. Or you can just go off mute. I mean, you don't have to use the chat, because then Emily has to go off mute and then she tells me, but you could just tell me. All right, just tell Emily.
I love it. Catherine says, shout out to all the people dealing with billing issues, real MVPs, and the idea of a caregiver-centered business.
All right, respect.
I also wanted to throw out there that Bridget Boyd said, how do you know when it's time to expand and open other locations?
Okay, Bridget's gonna take over the world. Okay. Where's Bridget located? I want to make sure that's not Beaverton.
I love it.
All right. Any big ideas though that someone said, damn, I want to do that. I want to implement this or change that. Was there any context? If not, I'll go with my own ideas and where we've attempted and been successful, some that we've not been successful.
Hey, Clayton. Can you hear me? This is Carlos.
Carlos, you were the one at risk.
I was. I'm going to take a chance and get a jump on it. Hey,
All
so
right.
I've had an idea for a while that I haven't done, and that is I had heard back in one of my mini webinars about block scheduling. And what that entails is like instead of going to a client and saying, hey, what hours do you want? And then, majority want this prime time, 10 to 3, 9 to 3 or something.
Yeah.
is coming to them and saying, hey, we offer shifts from 8 to 12 and from 12 to 4 and from 4 to 8. Which one do you
Yep.
want? You know?
Okay.
And as much as I've wanted to do it, I just haven't done it. I mean, it's just plain and simple. I've talked about it to my team, and everybody says, oh, okay, that might work, but I think that would really help us as far as scheduling and having caregivers consistently staffed. And we don't have a caregivers staff between 10 and 2, and you can't give them any more hours because they're just not available.
Yep.
But
Yep.
that's my idea that hasn't come to fruition.
All right. Well, then we'll keep that kind of top of mind as we go through some of the change control stuff. And Carlos, I'm happy to chat after this and kind of share with you some ideas that maybe be super pertinent to you and what you're doing at
Sure.
Always Best Care, but maybe not everyone
Excellent.
else.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I in the chat where they're going, we have some great ideas. I have to share this one specifically first. Katharina says she's thought about adding a spa day for caregivers or a daycare, which I thought was such a great idea. I had to tell her how much I love that. And then Catherine C says short-term disability for PRN caregivers. Marilyn says we just got excited about taking a small office team to a client on their birthday as a singing telegram with flowers and joy. Tina says levels for caregivers, caregiver, care pro, memory partners. They cater to memory damage. She says last level must have a submitted Google review to be promoted. Good ideas.
Okay. Google reviews. Good. Okay. All right. Well, first of all, this is a lot more interactive than I've seen. So I'm super appreciative. I can see now where the chat's at, and I can see I have 20 messages. But Emily, I'm going to rely on you when there's one or two themes to just kind of pop in. Carlos, out of curiosity, where is your office, since you were bold enough to unmute?
We are in El Paso, Texas.
Okay. All right. Okay. Beautiful, beautiful city, El Paso. I had a chance to meet Jake Brown a couple of times, and I know a little bit about your organization and some of the values
Awesome.
and principles that you have. And so I think some of the things, because I've actually shared some of this content with Jake, I think some of the things you'll see that there's some natural similarities. And probably for all of you that are on this, we all are relatively similar in that we want to do well. Most of us find ourselves in that servant leadership personality. We want to do well. Um, most of us want to make changes where we can see improvements, whether it's our Google reviews or how we schedule. I'm guessing, Carlos, that the motivation is to better serve your caregivers or better serve your scheduling team. And so how can we do that? And what are the ways that would benefit the caregiving team that you serve and the clients that you serve and the management team in your office there in El Paso that you serve? And that's what it's about. I like to share. How many are familiar with the story of Odysseus? And no familiarity would be ideal for me, because then there'd be no one questioning my expertise in Greek mythology. Okay, this is perfect. And if I start to see that chat room blow up, and I'll know I'm off base. But I like this story. Odysseus is coming back from the Trojan War. And as we know, many of the stories of the Trojan War and how in this legendary Greek king was the hero, and Homer wrote a poem about him and his willpower and his strength. And what I love about this picture is nobody had ever made it across the sea to come back home because these beautiful, I think they were called sirens, these beautiful sirens would mesmerize the men as they were sailing back to, they were sailing back to tell them, to share their triumphs. And these sirens would would lull them into oblivion, and no one ever managed. And but Odysseus did, and he told this story of his strength and his willpower. But as you see in the image, the truth is he tied himself to the mast. The only way he could survive was to actually remove his ability to waver. And I think for us, we find ourselves failing when we want to make a change, and we find ourselves struggling through the line. If you imagine, if you can visualize, if you have kids like I do, and you saw, I have a lot of daughters and I have a lot of granddaughters, and if you've ever taken your young child to Disneyland, a 6-year-old, let's just say, who believes that that is in fact where the princesses live, and we're going to ride a teacup ride, and we're excited, right? Everyone's excited about this Disneyland trip, and we wake up early that morning, and we get in, and we're excited about the ride, right? Because we're going to be on the teacups, we're going to see the princess. But somewhere in between this excitement of the day and the teacup or seeing the princess is what? There's a line. And you see on the queue, it says 1 hour and 45 minutes. And if you don't have a plan for that 1 hour and 45 minutes for your sweet princess, who's 6 years old, you're in trouble. Okay, you're in big trouble, because she's going to convince you at what a bad idea this was, because it's hot and she's hungry and she's bored. And I promised her she was going to see the princess, and yet we're standing in this line for what feels like an eternity. We have to anticipate that as agency owners and administrators and leaders in our office. We have to anticipate that the excitement of a change and visualizing the outcome, that's where the idea begins. But there's a lot of steps in between. And if we don't understand those steps, then we will have that look on the face of my scheduler who's looks like she's managed to print out all of the open shifts and is highlighting things, and God knows what she was thinking about at that moment. But what are the reasons that we typically fail in these big ideas of change? One, we really don't believe in the reason, whatever the outcome is. Now, my 6-year-old believes in seeing this princess, whether that's 1 minute or 1 hour and 45 minutes. She believes that it's worth it. She doesn't have a context of how much time that it takes. Now, me as the parent, I have to plan for that. So as an agency owner, we have to bring our team together, and we have to believe that the outcome that we want to change is worthy of this work. We aren't united that this is a problem that we should all be solving. If we don't all believe that this is a problem that we should be solving, we're going to lose momentum in the line. If we don't plan ahead, we need to share with our team. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be setbacks. This isn't going to be a linear A, B, C, D all the way to conclusion. No, we're going to go A, B, C, D, C, D, E, D, C, D, E, F. That's the way changes happen. If we as the owner, as the administrator, don't seek alternative perspectives, we're going to make a mistake. If we don't have a plan to measure our progress, we will lose momentum. Ultimately, if we're not willing to adjust, sometimes the changes that we want to make and enlighten other parts of our business that we weren't aware of, sometimes the facts change. And boy, for all of us that have been in business prior to COVID starting, and sat around in December or January of 2020 doing our annual planning, well, if you didn't recognize around March 20th that all those plans, you could throw those out the window. There's a brand new world that we're now marching down a new path. You have to be able to adjust. What do they, I think they call adaptive quotient, AQ, adaptive quotient. I think the most successful agency owners and leaders within our offices are very adaptive. Sometimes you learn you don't have a stomach to change. Um, and in the end, what we have to do for us change control agents, we have to have a visual of what it looks like. And we have to be good at galvanizing this idea of what's possible. What might the world look like in our office if we successfully made this change? And sitting at a table where we're talking with a scheduling manager, what would that mean to you? A recruiting and retention person, or a client services, or an administrator, or a nurse, or a weekend or a night team. How would that change a caregiving team? What would it look like if we could successfully do that? We got to be able to paint that picture. All right, so I focused this around an emerging concept of technology, and how would technology address a variety of things that we want to change, and what are things that we typically want to change. I wrote down some of them. Scheduling was one. Culture was one. Reviews. So you could maybe look at that as a performance based, as a improvement, a service improvement. There's lots of ways to attack that, and I heard a lot of good ideas. A singing telegram, a birthday, smart things, thinking of PRN services, offering those caregivers that serve your clients ways to better serve them. I heard spa day, and I heard a daycare. So I wanted to take us back a little bit, because what technology means in 2024 might be different than for some of us that started our businesses many years ago. When I first started thinking about technology in the early days, or my early days, I started in 2007. We started our business and we used QuickBooks and we used Excel. Okay, and that's how we managed, and paper. And that's how we manage care plans. That's how we manage schedules. So we used Outlook, so email, but those were the systems. And then I know that WellSky was not the first. I think Generations was there before WellSky, but I had never heard of Generations, and no Generations salesperson ever called me. So I didn't know that there was an industry of enterprise software. But when the WellSky or ClearCare salesperson called, I was super interested. And that was a technology, an enterprise software that I could run my business, and I could house my assessments and my care plans and scheduling and billing and payroll and all of the features and benefits. And so we were a beta tester for this new software company, WellSky, or ClearCare, sorry, at the time. And since then, there's a lot of awesome companies, and there's probably awesome companies that I didn't name, but Alaya Care is awesome, and Access Care is awesome, and Smart Care and Generations. So lots of technologies that helped us, software technology that helped us. I would say over the past 10 years, when I think of technologies, I think of how challenging it is to grow. I heard Deb talk about rising staff cost versus client staff wages versus client cost. Well, having a CRM that I can target, slice, and dice. These are these are the referral resources that I have the best rates with, or that the perceived value is the highest, versus other referral resources where I have a lower uh, contracted rate with. Having a balance of those, being able to look at that in a CRM. When we look at, I can't remember who said, can't remember who said they were going to take over the world and grow multiple locations, but CRMs help us understand this much activity, drop-in visits, uh, uh, meetings, lunch and learns. This many per week translate to this many referrals, translates to this many assessments, translates to this many clients. And our average client is X number of hours per week, and our average rate is Y dollars per hour. Well, that's how you determine when's the right jumping off point. And um, and and Emily, remind me the person's name because I that was an important question.
Which one?
The one growing, adding a location.
Oh, that was I'm sorry, I'm going back up in the chat. Bridget Boyd.
It was Bridget.
Bridget. Okay, Bridget B. All right. Thank you. Well, that's a good question. And so how do you use a technology to help determine, what's it going to take to get my hours up to where I'm going to be break even, and how long is that going to take? Well, it's going to be based on how much new business that I can bring in, which is based on good data around activity, conversion rates, and then how much of the services, what the personnel that I have, can I leverage in one office and not have to duplicate all of those roles? In other words, if I had one full-time scheduler, would I need two full-time schedulers, or could I get a full-time and a part-time? Now the cost of this second operation isn't as great. Would my business development person be able to cover both of those geographies? And where I have now only one cost of a BDM spread out over two offices, that makes each office more profitable. Well, tools like HubSpot and Salesforce and Pipedrive and Zoho and Monday and all of you are probably thinking, 30 others that work the same, better, or are easier or cheaper or free. And the short answer is you're right. But I bet a bunch of us on this call use WellSky as our CRM. And WellSky is not the best CRM. Or we use Outlook, we use our calendar to track our activities. Tough to get analytics. So what I would say, Bridget, is a tool like this is super, super helpful for you to make decisions about that ramp up and how long it's going to take. I see more chat. So Emily, anything that's real time with where we're at, don't hesitate to hop in. All right. Over the past few years, if you've attended, if you're a franchise system, and I know Carlos, I know Jake has spent a lot of time looking at different technologies that would improve care outcomes. But if you think about just the news last night, hospital at home initiative that out of DC, how do we keep our aging adults from reactively overutilizing our hospital system and our emergency room and burdening our skilled and our rehabs? Well, there's lots of remote patient monitoring tools that hospitals and skilled facilities say, "Here, Mildred, when you go home, step on this scale, log these liquids, take your blood pressure, do these things, push this button, wear this device." And that information will allow us to make decisions about your changes in conditions and proactively bring resources to you. Awesome. There's more emergent There's more emergent RPMs, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I think that tools like this can help, and I think as we explore AI, as we explore the amount of data we can collect, I think we'll find that it can address a lot of the things that we're looking for. Not some of them, and some of them about morale. I wouldn't begin to describe any of these tools as tools that would improve morale or dysfunction. There's 1,000 books on keys to aging in place. I want to remind everyone, 40 years ago, the average life expectancy was 68. Okay. So we'll work till we're 62. We got a 6-year runway to burn out our cash, have a little fun, and then bang, we're done. That's not the world. I was at an independent living today. Average age in this community, 200 apartments or so, 86 years old. Average age. The world has changed. I saw or I heard a statistic in DC last week that said by 2040, there'll be the same amount of people over the age of, I think, 75 that are under the age of 18. It's incredible. I mean, it's never been this way. Well, if you looked at these books 5 years ago, very few would have technology as one of the 10 keys. But now technology is a part of this. How do you age in place without technology? You can't as successfully. It's not you're missing one of the keys. Even the AARP says technology is one of the keys to successful aging. Here's some of the ways that they would benefit seniors. And this is from AARP. This is from a couple of years ago. I'm a certified speaker for AARP, and I talk on some of these topics. What I loved about this article is because it's kind of a visualization that I've always had about our industry, which is we're kind of like the Doc Bakers, if you remember Little House on the Prairie. And when Half Pint was sick, she didn't get in, Pa didn't get her into the wagon and carry her off into the town. No, Doc Baker came out and tended to her. That's what we do. We're on the front line of this type of care. And so AARP says to their constituent, I'm 52 now, so now I'm actually a member of AARP. Sidebar, I don't know if any of you saw, but the Rolling Stones concert sponsored by AARP. Okay. I don't know how we all got this old, but now AARP is the headline, has as their headliner, the Rolling Stones. Okay. So what are the technologies that are in the market? Wearable devices. We've all seen those. If you look down, some percentage of you are wearing an Apple Watch. That's a wearable device. You may have seen or heard of sensors. There's tons of sensors that capture movement. There's video technology. There's interactive technology, grand pads and interactive that you would engage with in a telehealth type way. All of those require some action of the senior. So I kind of delineate those four. The three below, I think, is really where the industry is going to go to because they're all passive. There are emerging technologies utilizing infrared, sonar, radar. Think of the driverless car. Anyone who's from Pittsburgh, that was a big thing. There were driverless cars everywhere as they were doing these prototypes. That's an emerging technology. It uses the sonar radar to manage those things. I think that we'll find that those are technologies, passive technologies that'll be utilized for aging adults, audio-based. You saw the Sensi.ai, they're a company that's audio-based, using audio-based technology. So how does your office decide what to do? If I'm going to utilize a technology or I want to make a change, what are the key things? Here are the 5 that we as an agency, one, we ask ourselves, will this change allow our office to improve client care outcomes? At the core, if you're going to improve in an office, it better include this galvanizing idea that it's going to make things better for someone, whether it's a client, whether it's a caregiver, whether it's the office staff, something has to be very tangible that we're going after. If it's a technology, is it easy to use? Meaning, is it easy to install, easy to review the data, easy to communicate the information? If it's not, I'm telling you now, run for the hills. Do not attempt it. None of you have an IT department. None of you are as tech savvy as other industries. And you're in an office full of people just like you. And they'll hate you. Okay. If you attempt to do a complicated technology that's not easy to install, that's not easy to review the information and communicate. Does the change that you're making after the implementation make life easier for your team? Man, if you can talk to your scheduler about blocks and say, if we could do this, here's what it would mean for you as a scheduler. Can we visualize that? Because in the meantime, it's not going to be easier. Actually, in the meantime, it's going to be more challenging. But after that, it could be easier. Does the change allow us to address opportunities for improvement that your team has communicated? During your monthly business reviews, do you have a forum for people to talk about, I need this to be better? I need that to be better. How can I? Well, you got to incorporate that. If you're making a change, that's what hey, Heidi, it's okay if she sits in. And then what are the costs versus benefits? There were a couple of questions about budgeting. Matt G said about adding employees, and cost versus benefit analysis is super important for us as owners and leaders. So we got to write those things down. Start with the end in mind. I don't care what the changes that you're contemplating. Start with the end in mind. Paint that picture and ask your team, hey, what problems would this solve if we were able to connect the dots from our future selves to here? Here's a case study on what we did. Again, we have another 10 or 12 minutes, so I'll move through this case study. All of these things, I'm happy to have a breakout one-on-one anytime. We wanted to improve care outcomes. We utilize Home Care Pulse. Our lowest score, although we're an award-winning agency, was in communications. Our second lowest score was in training, and we wanted to grow our agency hours. That's what we wanted to improve. We used a change management process that was done by Kurt Lewin. He was a psychologist, and he's really best known for a 3-step change model. Why did I choose Lewin's? Because I'm a simple person, and 3 steps sounded easier than 5 or 7 or 11 steps. So I said, if we can do this in 3, that would probably be good. So for me, it was simple. And one thing I know about our industry is that we're good at repetitive. We're good if it's just repetitive. We do the same thing, 8:30 morning stand-up. Every Monday we do this. Every month we do this. And so what Dr. Lewin says is there's really 3 steps to effectively make a change. 1, take what you're currently doing and be willing to unfreeze it. Recognize that there's a need for change. And when I say we, it means everyone on your team. Okay. Everyone on your team has to buy in on this. We unfreeze what our current process is. We say to our team in El Paso or Beaverton, there's no sacred cows. We're going to be open to unfreezing what we're doing, because what we're doing is limiting us in our hours, our margins, our client satisfaction, our retention, blah, blah, blah. Encourage replacement of old behaviors and attitudes. Get buy-in, manage and understand doubts and concerns. You have a link here where you can learn a whole bunch more. There's an awesome checklist. Again, that's not mine. It's a template that comes from the Lewin's Institute. So you can utilize that. Then you galvanize on what those changes are. You plan for those changes. You implement them. You help your team members learn the new concepts. Guys, we are an industry. We are a female-centric industry. We are a healthcare industry. So when we make these changes and we take steps back, remember A, B, C, D, E, F is not the way this goes. It's A, B, C, B, B, C, D, E, D, C, sometimes B. And we just keep doing that. And we just keep reinforcing. And what are we reinforcing? We're reinforcing the vision of what happens if we successfully implement this change, whether it's a technology, a software, whether it's a new scheduling model. There's going to be challenges. We are an Eisenhower industry, collaboration, lots of voices. We're not a patent industry. We don't walk around. I'm not sure what that was that he whacked around with and whacked. But that's not who we are. That's not who is attracted to our industry. Once we have a process defined, a change, then we refreeze it. And then we do that, but we do that in a way that we're open to refreezing. We may have refrozen some mistakes. So we're open to, hey, we got to make some tweaks. Again, no sacred cows. It can't be Clay said it this way, Carlos said it this way, Bridget said this. No, we're looking at the outcomes. And when we do it, and when we execute the change, we celebrate that. You know, the first time I heard our team in the morning talk about the deals in HubSpot, I was like, hey, we're really doing it. We're beginning to make this standard of how we operate, how we manage opportunities. So that's the process. Now, there's a lot of keys to this, to successfully unfreezing, successfully making a change, and then successfully refreezing those processes. I won't take a deep dive into this. You have this content, and then you have, you know, we're all in the same industry. So, you know, don't call me Monday morning when I'm just discovering that we had a tough weekend, and don't call me Friday afternoon when thankfully one of our partners in hospice said that they have a new client, but we need to start at 4:30. But other than those two times, call me. We can talk through these 15 key steps. Tracking KPIs. I won't open it up, but if you're not tracking KPIs, that's a whole other discussion. But let me just say, you'll be better if you do. I'm happy to share, Emily, this template with anyone who wants it. It's a very basic KPI tool that tracks quarterly. I'm happy to have a conversation with anyone who's interested on how we do it. I've learned a long time ago that tracking fewer things is better, and having a format where your leadership team on a weekly basis can come to a meeting and talk through these. Now, they got to be prepared, but talk through these key performance indicators is a healthy way to really learn where people are struggling. Tina mentioned morale. During these discussions is often when we hear the challenges. You asked me to do an hour of calls a day on the BDM, but yet you sent me off to do this client services job, or I had to fill in for scheduling, or I had to do this. That's frustrating. I'm missing my KPIs. Well, we as owners need to hear that. We need to adjust and say, yeah, if I hand my BDM, 6 gallons of water, and my BDM has a 5-gallon bucket, well, I have a problem. He's spilling or she's spilling a gallon every day, and that's because I'm setting them up for failure, and I can hear that and learn that in a weekly meeting. I like to celebrate the wins. I'm a huge believer in take this quarter that we just wrapped up. Look at the same quarter from last year. And in this case, what we were trying to change was how often could we refer out to our partners? Who are our partners? We have partners in hospice. For us, we work closely with Gentiva in our Beaverton office. We have partners in home health, partners in senior housing advising. How often can we refer out to them? And if you look at the KPIs Q3 22, you can see we did 1, 2, 3 different times. And then you look at that same quarter and you can see we only had 1 week that quarter where we had 0 referrals. that's a real win. And celebrating those wins, reinforcing that behavior with your team is key to galvanizing that refreezing of your new process. How do we leverage our success? I think that really ties into growing your agency. Well, you leverage the success because for Bridget B, when we believe that givers get, we believe when we are able to be a great resource to our power partners, then we believe that we will in turn be recipients of quid pro quo might not be the right word, but that we would naturally benefit because our partners would want to also serve us. And the reason we're power partners is because we're well aligned in terms of our culture, our goals, the outcomes that we're trying to achieve for our mutual clients. We're coming up right on time, and unlike the previous session, I will end less than 1 or 2 minutes late. In conclusion, for those of you on that managed to stay on, and I see Rachel's on. Rachel, thanks for inviting me to this. Technology can be a tool that helps us manage some of the changes, some of the most common changes. Retention. Would a CRM help us retain our caregivers better if we had a drip campaign that was touching them, connecting with them on some regular basis that enhanced what we were already doing, whether it was a spa day or a singing birthday gram or a Starbucks card? Would a CRM help us further improve that? Change management is a tool. It is a science. So don't try to do this based on your own experience and your own background. Leverage what Lewin did. This is 1947. If you find a better one that works better for you, go ahead. There's as many ideas on this as there are people that ever decided that change management was going to be their career. Measuring success is the key. You got to know if you're making progress. You got to know if you're moving forward. Be comfortable with the numbers guiding you. Be comfortable that the refreezing of your new process is working in some areas and actually isn't working in others. Be willing to tweak those things. Be humble with your team and say, hey, I might have put us on the bad path. We might have learned some things, but I think if we make another change, we might be better off. And then leverage this new standard of care. We got to see our primary referral resources every week. What the hell are we going to talk about with them every single week? Well, this is one of those things. Hey, we're making a change. We believe this is going to help us better serve your hospice patients, better serve your home health clients, better serve the clients that are looking for housing options, better serve your discharging patients from skilled and blah, blah, blah. So we believe that this would help. I'll leave you with a quote from former President, Mrs. President Rosalind Carter, who said, there's only 4 kinds of people in this world: those who have been a caregiver, those who are currently a caregiver, those who will be a caregiver, and those who will need a caregiver. And that's the business that we're in. That's the life that we've all chosen and that I love. And I'm 2 minutes off. Technically, my timer says I'm at 1 minute to go, but I'll split the difference. I'm sure there's more questions. I see the chat went from 25 to 33. Rachel's smiling, so that's a good sign. Thumbs up, so that's a good sign. If there's any questions that are appropriate now, Emily, I'll take them. If it's more appropriate that I do it via email, given the time, I'll do it that way.
I think we chatted over, I think I shared everything with you during it. So I think you answered.
Impossible. I see there's 34 now, Emily. It's impossible.
Well, a lot of them were just comments or thanking you for the incredible information. But we're going to get the template, and I will send that out with the replay, the template for everyone. So you guys will all get a copy of that. Clayton, if you want to email that to me, that'd be great. And everyone is just saying you have amazing information.
Okay, well, if there's any constructive criticism, please send that to me on Monday, because I don't want my weekend, and I will not be able to stop thinking about any negative comment until, so send that to me Monday. Anything positive, by all means, I'm happy to hear that anytime.
Now, I missed the beginning. Did you guess people's height and weights and show them your
No,
skills?
Rachel, this is virtual, and
That's my
while I
negative
was-
feedback.
while I was raised by carnival people, even my skills cannot do this via a virtual meeting. So no, I did not. But if
You
you
guys have
ever
to see him
me,
speak in person.
we'll find out that I have an uncanny ability to do this.
He does. Thank you so
Birthdays
much for
as
being
well.
here, Clayton.
Birthdays as well, within 2 months. It's remarkable.
It's a gift.
Well, thank you all for
so
having
much.
me. You have my information. I look forward to hearing from you. Emily, with that, I'll say peace and love. Am I supposed to hang on longer, or what happens next?
Nope,
You're-
you're good. Yeah, you're good. We'll just go back to the main session for closing, but you are good.
You guys can leave the breakout room. It's time for the raffle.
Okay, all right. Then are
Thank
you going
you
to
so
send me
much,
out of
Kate.
this breakout, Emily, or how do I get there?
You can push leave room, or I'm gonna close the room. So you'll automatically come out.
Okay, all right. Thank you.